Is it cheaper to travel full-time than it is to live in an apartment in 2023? Hi, my name's Alana, and I've been living as a digital nomad for the last year and a half, so I would love to answer this question. So is it cheaper than what? Travel 10 years ago? Probably not. But is traveling full-time cheaper than living in an apartment in, say, America, where I'm from? Possibly, if you do it right. So this definitely depends on you and your lifestyle, and also whether or not you're working online while you travel. But instead of just talking this entire video, I'm going to give you the example of how much money I spend on things here in the Dominican Republic, which would also explain the random motorcycle noises that you might hear in the background, so I'm sorry. So if you missed my video about how to budget your next backpacking trip, I talked about how much it costs to budget backpack in Costa Rica. So I will link that video here in the cards. But in Costa Rica, I was spending about $40 per day, which is not bad, but it's not what I wanted. So I came here to the Dominican Republic, and here I've been spending more like $30 per day. So if you're bad at math, that means that in Costa Rica, I was spending about $1,200 per month in rent, living costs, and food and transportation and like everything. Now with some of the friends that I've talked to in the United States, $1,200 is just their rent, which is insane to me. But here in the Dominican Republic, 1 month has cost me $900 for food, transportation, accommodation, everything. Now I'm gonna break down how much everything costs here in the Dominican Republic and how this can possibly work for you. So for example, 1 month's rent here in the Dominican Republic was $700, and that got me this private room in a hostel-like environment. So it was a shared kitchen, shared working and living space, but I had my own private room where I could keep all my things and, you know, leave my dirty laundry on the floor and no one would say anything because it's not a dorm. And then the amount of money that I spent on food per day definitely varied a lot, but the average I would say was about $7.50 or 420 pesos, which if you multiply that by 30 comes out to about $200 per month on food. Which, when I had my own apartment in the United States 2 years ago, I would spend about $250 on food, and prices have only increased since then, so I can only imagine. Then I've made a list here on my phone of the different average prices of things that I came across while I was living in this tiny town in the Dominican Republic. If you want to see a vlog of me living in this tiny town, be sure to check out this video here. And I'm going to be giving this in Dominican pesos and then also in US dollars. If you don't use US dollars, I'm sorry, but you can convert. So if I was buying fruit or vegetables from the local fruit and veggie stand, it was usually about 20 pesos per item, which is about 30 cents. I could buy a dozen eggs for under $2, which cannot be said in America here and now in 2023. You could also spend 125 pesos or $2.20 on a full liter of beer. Wait, do I not know liters? Nope, it's a liter. I could go to the local French bakery down the street and spend 50 to 100 pesos on a fresh baked bakery good for my breakfast in the morning, which is like $1 or $2. And also at this French bakery, they had baguettes that were fresh and delicious and perfect for sandwiches, and they only cost 50 pesos. And they also sold fresh deli meat, which I didn't find anywhere else in this tiny town that had such good quality meat, but you could buy a package of deli meat for like 125 to 150 pesos, depending on the weight of the package, which is again like $2 to $3. If I went to a grocery store, I was usually buying things for my rice, veggie, and protein combo, which got kind of boring by the end, but it's a solid staple in my diet. So it included half a cup of rice and then some kind of vegetable, whether that was canned peas, which canned peas were like 35 pesos, so under $1, or fresh vegetables from the market that I mentioned earlier. And then the protein would vary, so maybe it was the eggs, like I mentioned earlier, that were really cheap, or I would buy canned tuna, which would be like 100 pesos per can, or like under $2, or beans, which were comparable prices. I don't remember how much the rice cost, but I just bought a big bag of rice and it lasted me the entire time that I was there, so it doesn't really matter. If you want to eat out, you could eat out at like the restaurants that are just a mom cooking in her kitchen and serving on the street. And that was usually 250 pesos or $4.50, depending on whether you got chicken, fish, or beef. And the fanciest meal I ever got in this tiny village was 600 pesos, or $10.50. That included a drink, an appetizer, a meal, and leftovers from that meal for the next day's dinner. So that's what I call fancy. Now that's a lot of food costs because I love food, but the other thing that will really eat into your budget, aside from accommodation and food, is your transportation. So for example, here in the Dominican Republic, a 5-hour bus from up in the Samana Peninsula down to the Dominican Republic will cost me about 500 pesos, or around $9. You can also rent your own motorcycle. The prices that I saw around were about $20 per day. Or the cheapest way to get around are the guaguas, which I just think is a great word, but it's the word that they use for the local buses here in the Dominican Republic, and I paid about $2.50 for an hour ride today, so I think that's a great deal as well. It's just some guy in his truck and he honks and he's like, hey, you want to go to Samana? And I'm like, hey, I do! And so then you get in his truck and you make it there safely. But anyways, going back to the question of this video, is it cheaper to travel full-time in 2023 than it is to live in an apartment? The short answer is yes, but it depends on how you do it. You might have to share a kitchen, a workspace, or even a bedroom. You might have Wi-Fi issues that interrupt your remote work. You might be eating rice and beans and veggies for a month straight. You might be spending more time working from the local hostel than you do sightseeing. But if your intention is to travel long term, you have to find a balance between pleasure and work. And so that's why I say if you're planning on just taking a vacation, no. It's definitely not cheaper to travel full time. And if you're traveling to countries with a high cost of living, absolutely not. It's not going to be cheaper to travel full time. But if you're working remotely while traveling in countries with a lower cost of living, then yes, it's 100% more affordable to be a digital nomad than it is to live full-time in an apartment in the United States. Now, do I think everyone should be a digital nomad? Well, that's a question for a different video. It'll be linked here in the cards once it's released. But if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye guys!